biased, but we think that IDme and federated identity is a massive innovation that's going to drive change. But we're still fairly nascent, even in the public sector. I think Amazon's Alexa product and the notion of a voice-based operating system for commerce and for the home has seen like massive adoption over this last year, and that's a really exciting development for the industry. I'm still surprised that digital wallets haven't been adopted by consumers more broadly. It seems that nobody's really cracked the case on finding a killer use case or app that leads to widespread consumer adoption. There's a broad awareness, and people kind of know that it's important and what the future will look like, but nobody's really figured out the market entry strategy to nail adoption. You know, I think some of the headwinds deal with convergence. You see a lot of convergence between loyalty, payments, identity, and as people are jockeying for position to become the dominant platforms in these new markets that are now combined, it creates uncertainty about who's going to win and what the standards will be. And that always will inhibit innovation when people don't know what the future looks like. I think as some of those things shake out, then the industry will see more rapid innovation once people understand what the platforms for the next 5 and 10 years are going to be. You know, I think the most growth is going to come from identity federation and biometrics. One of the reasons why we attack the identity problem is that identity is often a prerequisite to delivering trusted services online, not just for payments, but also for healthcare, for interacting with the federal government, notarization of documents, and so on and so forth. And if you can solve for identity, you take a massive amount of friction out of the market. So biometrics is one niche component of identity, and you see a lot of innovation happening with like MasterCard, with Pay with Selfie, which got a lot of press, and USAA's Login with Selfie as well. And I think that trend is only going to accelerate pretty rapidly as some of those pioneers are proving use cases that consumers really like. I can only speak for IDme, and as an entrepreneur, it's a massive amount of money, although when you're kind of in the moment, you do the budget and it makes sense. For us, you know, it's just a validation point. It's easier than ever to start a company, but it's really hard to find product market fit, and it's even harder to scale into a large user base once you found product market fit. And so for us, the $19 million is one validation point among many that we're really onto something that's a big idea, and we're very excited to have FTV Capital along for the ride, given their expertise in scaling companies that are focused on enterprise technologies and financial services. I want to start by saying it's important not to conflate an identity with a password, because a password is just one thing that can log you into an account. And so there's this thing called multi-factor authentication that can be something you know, something you have, something you are. And we believe in a future where people have choice about logging in through wearables or through selfies or Touch ID or passwords. For high-risk services, we always administer multi-factor authentication. So the only way to get into somebody's credentials to not only compromise password, but something else like your device or a biometric, which is really hard to do at scale. And then the second thing that we've built into our identity gateway is we can actually federate third-party identity providers. So our platform's built more like Visa, where people have choice between many identity providers, and we aren't the centralized, sort of like a citizen-facing version of the NSA. That'd be awful. What we are is we're like Visa in that if somebody wanted to pick like a credential from the United States Postal Service, or from Citibank, or from Bank of America, if they wanted to federate in our system, then the data is actually centralized across many different identity providers so that there is no one kind of ID to rule them all. And we think that partitioning is really, really important. You know, so I would say to start off with, Facebook and Google have contributed important things to the identity ecosystem. Facebook pioneered the OAuth 2.0 protocol, which is now broadly used across websites for federated identity. Google has contributed a massive body of research to data breaches and multi-factor authentication, weaknesses in SMS authentication being just like one example of how Google's contributed. But fundamentally, there's something really wrong with two advertising companies that are the de facto owners and managers of our digital identity. And I think most people realize that. You know, you probably don't feel comfortable letting Facebook log you into your healthcare, given the fact that they profile you constantly, and that a lot of their changes when it comes to privacy are opt-out instead of opt-in. Like you're automatically opted into a whole suite of things, and then you've got to read an instruction manual to figure out how to take back control. So we really want to create more of a network where there's choice. Again, like Visa, you could bank with Chase, or you could bank with Citi, or you could bank with your community bank. We think that that's how it should work with logins as well. If you essentially replicate the digital driver's license ecosystem where state DMVs are replaced with government agencies, with tech companies that all align to common standards, you'll see a digital ecosystem where you can pick whichever identity provider you trust the most, and then take it with you across the web so that you're only managing one login, but there are many login providers. And we think that that has to happen because an advertising company or market dominated by advertising companies isn't going to innovate in the way that consumers want or expect when it comes to important services like payments and healthcare.